And she stopped me and she asked me a question that fundamentally changed my life.
There's enough of ways of finding funds and people or financial institutions that will back you.
So I always follow the foreign markets. So at least there's some lesson to learn from what they have gone through and how they have performed.
Everyone, Vanakkam and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subasandhavak, Veva, Iniyamalai Vandarangal, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to see all of you here on a Saturday evening, and I must say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for sparing the time on a weekend to be with us. Thank you for honoring the invitation. And I can promise you from the podium that what is in store is going to be very interesting. The people you'll hear speak today are not the conventional speakers. You may think, no, they have been on stage, but they'll be pushed to their limits. So stay in store. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is the second, if you remember, in 2024, such an event was also held. Almas One Priority. Today is the second event we see for the priority members. Today's title, however, is The XChange by Almas One Priority. More of this will be told as we proceed. But first of all, it is not my place to welcome you formally. We have someone else who has more eloquence and articulation to do so and who is qualified to do so than I. And I'd like to invite him to the podium, but before he comes to the podium, a little bit about him. His name is Ifad Marika. He holds the position of Chief Executive Officer of Almas Equities, that's in the stock brokering and investment advisory. With nearly 2 decades of experience in equity markets and financial services, Mr. Marika brings a wealth of knowledge and insight into investment strategy, capital markets, and client-focused financial solutions. Holding an MBA and certifications in investment advisory, he has been instrumental in driving innovation, expanding Almas Equities' service offerings, and strengthening its presence in Sri Lanka. Under his leadership, the firm continues to empower investors with comprehensive solutions and strategic guidance, fostering growth and value creation across the market. Ladies and gentlemen, to welcome you in proper, Ifad Marika.
Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It truly means the world to us. I'm sure you all had your weekend plans moved just to be here with us today. Almas Equities was born 4 years ago, during one of the most challenging eras of our country. We made a bold decision to enter the financial services market when there was uncertainty abroad. We were built from zero. We had no active accounts and no employees, only a vision and conviction. Our sincere gratitude goes to all of you all because you guys have been with us since inception. We transitioned from a dormant entity to a dynamic, growth-driven organization. We scaled operations, expanded client bases, and strengthened our internal capabilities. Our team culture is deeply rooted to resilience and performance. Our growth is not driven just by market cycles, but strategic executions as well. The launch of the Whitelist Index has been a game changer for the industry. We were the first broker firm to come up with our alternate index, which was to help all our investors who are focused on whitelisted shares. And then to disrupt the market, we came up with the Almas One platform. And it was one of the biggest steps we have taken towards digital innovation of the market. I am proud to say that it is being used in over 100 countries. We are trying to position ourselves as a forward-looking capital market expert. And your help and your services has truly helped us, push ourselves towards the next. Almas Equities has reached a revenue of 100 billion for the last 4 years. And out of that, 50% came just only within the last year. And I thank you all for entrusting us with all your valuable investments. We are now fighting market standings and positions. It is a great journey ahead of us. It is challenging, but we are sure that we are here to disrupt the whole market. We are committed to continue with our innovations and transformations, especially on the digital side of investments. We are focusing on sustainable growth and not short-term wins. We would like to expand our value for our clients, partners, and shareholders. And I'm confident our next phase of growth is going to help us do that. Today is not about just reflecting on our journey, but about what's coming. A platform to exchange ideas, challenge perspectives, and explore new opportunities. Without further ado, I would like to welcome you all and end my speech. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, that gives me the entry to something special, and that's what all of you are here for, the panel discussion. Most of you must be following the socials of Almas One. If you're not, it's on all socials, including Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. So do follow. And if you have been following, you know the brand XChange, Almas XChange, which everyone follows for these kind of podcasts. Well, today is the live show. I see some of the faces who have already been on the podcast in the audience. So today is a live show. We have a few more new faces joining us on stage. So first of all, let me introduce you, or invite, I've already done the introduction, invite on stage the person who will be directing all the questions in the firing line. Ifad, if you could please be on stage, the CEO of Almas Equities. And let me introduce to you the panelists one by one. The first person to take stage is Asanka Herath. He's a CEO of Unit Trusts and Head of Equities at Linear Wealth Management with over 18 years of experience in investment management and research. For the past 12 years, Asanka has helped shape Linear, building its equity and unit trusts platforms, managing large portfolios, leading research, and advising clients on how to optimize their investment returns. Before joining Linear, he spent 6 years in sell-side research covering multiple regions and sectors. Asanka brings a multidisciplinary background in economics, econometrics, finance, and law. Without further ado, the expert on stage, Asanka Herath. Ladies and gentlemen, the next person I introduce to you is a person whose efforts unlocked economic hurdles for many in this island and made life a little bit easier for many, including me. Jiffry Zulfer, the founder and CEO of PickMe, Sri Lanka's first app-based ride-hailing platform, a trailblazer in the country's technology and business sectors. With expertise in ICT, business and finance, Zulfer has played a pivotal role in driving digital transformation in this tiny island of ours. Zulfer's entrepreneurial journey began with recognition as FCCL Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2004 and ICTA Young IT Professional in 2006, showcasing his innovative mindset and commitment to technological advancements. As CEO of PickMe, he continues to shape the nation's tech ecosystem while maintaining a global outlook. His role on the panel, ladies and gentlemen, obviously you know, his listing of PickMe on the Colombo Stock Exchange makes his position on the panel irreplaceable. As a respected figure in Sri Lanka's ICT landscape and a board member of ICTA, Zulfer remains dedicated to empowering communities and inspiring future tech entrepreneurs. His journey reflects resilience, innovation, and a commitment to driving meaningful change through technology. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Jiffry Zulfer. The next person needs no introduction. He's been in living rooms all along. But not anymore, but he's making waves otherwise. Aravinda De Silva, a distinguished business leader and investor who has successfully transitioned from an illustrious, I think I could add more words, but it's not enough, international cricket career to strategic corporate leadership. Through his family investment vehicle, Arcasia Investment and Trading Private Limited, he has built a diversified portfolio across financial services, technology, logistics, and the automotive sector, including a key strategic investment in Ambion Capital PLC, the parent company of Millennium IT ESP. As chairman of Arcasia Holdings, he provides strategic oversight across multiple operating verticals, driving sustainable growth, operational efficiency, and long-term enterprise value. His leadership combines strong governance, prudent risk management, and a forward-looking investment philosophy, establishing him as a credible and disciplined investor shaping business growth and economic development. If you notice, he was in the papers recently, and the editor is with us as well, announcing Sri Lanka being open to a $100 million fund. And we thought he's only good at cricket. On a lighter note, ladies and gentlemen, if ever we had a chance as kids roaming around Colombo, ever to set a sight on a Ferrari, it was because of him. Ladies and gentlemen, Aravinda De Silva. The next panelists, I had the privilege of meeting once, a very unassuming character, but everyone knows him right now. Like to call him a boy wonder, giving hope to many Sri Lankans, young, to aspire to greater heights. Bhanuka Harischandra, a self-taught entrepreneur focused on building and scaling modern business through technology, data, and digital strategy. He began his career at 18, founding the Gamers Cottage, a YouTube multi-channel network that helped creators monetize more than 500 million esports views. He used these skills in storytelling to launch Surge, I'm sure you know that, a design, marketing, and technology firm that attracted strategic investment from senior executives at the Tavistock Group, divesting a majority stake in 2018. Bhanuka subsequently led the merger of Surge with Kelsey Technologies to form Short Circuit Group, buying out its majority investors and providing a 15x return on their money. The consortium created a unified platform that combines deep engineering capability with growth design and data expertise. Bhanuka is a TEDx speaker, a Forbes Under 30 honoree, a recognized person among rest of world's top 100 changemakers. The boy wonder, Bhanuka Harischandra. Ladies and gentlemen, the next panelist is obvious. Mr. Imtiaz Buhardeen, the Group Chairman of Almas Holdings, a diversified group with strategic interests across capital markets, real estate, and financial services, underpinned by a long-term investment and value creation philosophy. A seasoned entrepreneur and a visionary leader, he has built and guided businesses with a strong focus on strategic capital market investments, disciplined portfolio structuring, and sustainable asset development. His leadership extends beyond operational growth into institutional building, governance, and intergenerational wealth creation. Mr. Buhardeen brings extensive international business experience, having worked in and built ventures across Malaysia, Africa, the UAE, Singapore, and our lovely island we called home, giving the group of Almas a globally informed strategic outlook and cross-border investment perspective. At the core of his philosophy is a defining principle. Capital should not only grow, it should endure. Ladies and gentlemen, Imtiaz Buhardeen. And as our last panelist makes his way to his seat on stage, I would like to inform you of something very special happening. Now, all of you have been to many fora, panels like this. Today, we intend to throw a curveball. Now, this googly of sorts is an interactive poll. All of you right now would have received, as a priority member of Almas, an SMS. And if you are not yet a priority member, don't worry. There's a QR code that's on screen. All you have to do is enter it. There will be 3 key questions asked. We need your feedback. And when the time is right, Ifad over there will throw the curveball at the panelists. So they have no clue of what these questions are, and there is no ready answer. If you're expecting a curated panel, ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to happen today. So, first question must be up. Fastest fingers need to be used. Please choose your answer now. So, waiting for the answers to trickle in. Okay, so we have 3 questions answered by the audience. You would have been directed to the 4th screen. Now, the 4th screen is special, and that is your portal to direct questions. You can ask any question starting now. There is also an option to vote up. So, if you go scrolling and you see a question that you would like to be answered, you can vote for it, which gives it priority in the list of questions, and that will be filtered. So, ask your questions. If you find something very important to ask and someone else has asked it, admire the question, go ahead, vote for it. And throughout, this will be taken up, and the question and answers will be referred to at the end of the panel discussion. Ifad will field those questions to the panel, and you will have your answers. So, with that announcement, I can hand it over to our moderator for the evening. Ifad, over to you.
So let's straight dive into Q&As. So my first question is to the person who evolved from master strokes in the cricket field to major acquisitions in the equity market, right? No, the question is not whether you can go bat for the Sri Lankan first 11 again. Right. So you transitioned from being a world-class cricketer to an entrepreneur, and now as a significant investor in the Colombo Stock Exchange. Tell us, what made you enter the market, and what were the key catalysts that tempted you?
Well, good evening to all of you. On a Saturday where I think everyone would have enjoyed watching the cricket rather than sitting here, I guess. But yes, to your question, I think as a young boy, I remember my father being an accountant. One thing he always told me while driving to school was, look at opportunities and don't let them go away. And sometimes you might not get the same opportunity again. But what I realized along the way was that, of course, cricket was my passion and sport overall, and that was something which I, as a child, enjoyed doing most. But along with that, I always enjoyed maths. And as I said, my father always wanted me to look at opportunities. So my interest always went towards looking at various investments, reading sometimes about people, how they grow wealth. And that was some sort of interest which I had from my younger days. And M&A was something I really enjoyed. So whilst I was playing cricket, I think there were little companies I was looking at their growth, how they grow their businesses, what the strategies were. And that is how I really got into investments, and at one point I never wanted to work for anyone, and I wanted to be my own boss for some reason, and thereon I think as soon as I finished my cricketing career, I had a lot of my investments done whilst I was playing, but as soon as I finished, I decided, okay, I'll look at to set up something and grow that business. So along the way, I got into an entity, and we started with Mahindra, the distributorship for Mahindras. And this all started with, of course, the relationships I built over the years through cricket. I think that is the gift of cricket to me. And that again, I wanted to make sure that I use that to create something bigger for the country and more so for the society. And whatever I do, I try to make it so that it has an impact to the society. Because there are, as you know, there's so much of opportunity outside in the world. But people keep asking me, why are you just focusing only on Sri Lanka? Some of these friends of mine from overseas says the market is very small. Why is it that you want to be here rather than overseas? But I still believe in Sri Lanka, and I believe there's so much of potential, and we need to get together and make sure we make that impact to make Sri Lanka a place where we can serve the region at least to start off with, and then grow globally. And that is how I started looking at investments. And from there on, I got involved in various kind of investments to start off with. But now I'm seriously looking at growing into the region.
Thank you, Mr. Harischandra. So just expanding on that itself, Mr. Imtiaz, you were also the same. You previously moved out of Sri Lanka, established businesses in Singapore and Malaysia. What made you come back, and what positivities do you still see here to be invested only in Sri Lanka mostly?
Thank you, Fad. Thank you for everyone for joining us today. Yes, during the 80s, I was in the garment industry with my father. So I learned quite a lot of businesses at that time. And when the country was still going through the war, at that time I decided things were not going right here in Sri Lanka. So I decided in 99 to go to Singapore and try something there. So as you said, yeah, went into something completely new, into a car trade, exporting used cars from Singapore to Africa and Sri Lanka and some other markets. So that was quite big, that was doing. And thereafter I moved into real estate properties in Malaysia. We're still doing there almost now 17, 18 years. We're still continuing that. Yes, after establishing all that, when the country finished the war, ended the war in 2009, I thought it would be the right time to come back, and what I have learned there and earned to bring back, and to start something. Investing, of course, I started almost 40 years back in 1985 into the stock market. So I've been out of the market for a while since I went out. But when I came back after about 13 years in 2011, from 2012 onwards, I started building a portfolio, and it was just buying only wherever money so I could get. I was just building a portfolio, and by 2020, when the COVID hit, I had built up a reasonably good portfolio at that time. And as you all know, the COVID period all over the world, by default, all the stock markets went up. It was massively, it went up because a lot of people couldn't go to work, and that was one area that they were investing online. So that gave a very good return there. And I always believed about Sri Lanka. So once I knew the war is ended, I knew Sri Lanka had the potential. Always everyone talks about Sri Lanka, the location, to all the things that we have. So I knew one day it's going to take off, and so although after 2020 the COVID came and we went through the 2-3 further problems, but I feel now it looks like we are on the right track with the IMF and all those things. So I see there is a huge growth backlog that we have to catch up from the other countries. So now I can see the foreign investors are interested in coming. They're looking at it. So they're waiting for a little more policy decisions, the credit ratings to go up. And once these are done, I'm sure in the next 5 to 10 years, Sri Lanka is going to be the place for real growth. So that's my belief, and it has worked for me very well for the last 5 years, believing that. So I hope it will continue going forward, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My next question is to you, Bhanuka. From establishing a very successful tech firm and then expanding and growing overseas and establishing bases in US as well, you would have seen so much opportunities to be invested in the US, and you have been doing private investments as well. What made you look at the listed equity space?
I think the journey of a founder always kind of forces you to think about your own business introspectively. And in that kind of process of analysis, you start to look at your business in the lens of others. And the public markets provide almost a mirror of what's happening around in the world and how you should be looking at your own business, which kind of helps you stay grounded, right? Especially when you're raising money, the most founders go through challenges of valuations and understanding the processes, the pros and cons, and helping investors figure out why you are an investable asset, right? If you don't participate, if you don't participate in the public markets, I think that's a fairly challenging endeavor, because the class of investor, be it private equity, early stage venture, or kind of the general retail crowd, eventually the terminal event is the public markets. Every founder one day envisions that they go up there, ring that bell and list their company and go through that process of price discovery. So for me, I think that's incredibly important. So I look at the public markets as a hedge to the private equity work that I do, where you can gain exposure to asset classes that you can't do on your own. And the journey of every founder, at least in my point of view, is you're usually all in, and your entire portfolio is one stock, which is your baby, your company that you get started. And as you go through life, you start kind of diversifying that, and it becomes less and less an individual thing. So for me, the involvement in the public equity space was a part of that gradual process. Initially, it was more out of curiosity and then more out of strategy.
All right. Thank you so much. Asanka, I believe you're one of the earliest members of Linear Wealth, right? From being an analyst to being the CEO of Unit Trust and leading a team in which the group is the biggest multifamily office in Sri Lanka. Tell us your journey towards what you have achieved today, and what are the challenges that you had to face?
I think it has been a fairly interesting journey, because I think Linear was founded in 2013, and for best part of those 16 years, Sri Lanka has been in multiple crises, starting from the East attack, the COVID, and the sovereign default. So this question sometimes I'll get asked now quite often. And what really made us thrive in that environment, I would say, is two things. First one is being the fact that from the very beginning, we said our ultimate focus should always be client centricity. when it comes to wealth management, it's not necessarily only the return the clients expect. Clients always expect put the client's interest first before everything else. So the 4 founders who founded Linear from the very beginning was very clear that focus on prioritizing the client, even more so above the company's P&L, and after a while, the clients will start actually valuing it. That's one reason I think from the very outset we didn't have a single partnership with a brokerage or a primary dealership, because it actually takes away that conflict of interest completely away. And also client centricity sometimes mean you disagree with the client as to what is best for him. And in that situation, you actually don't worry about what the client thinks. You articulate your point of view and you actually walk away. If you take about especially the multiple crises where some investors lost money due to taking excessive risks, why as an institution us and our clients may have managed is the fact that where we felt it's not appropriate, we walked away and we asked the clients also to walk away. So when you reflect on the journey, I think client centricity has been very key for our growth. And other one is the passion. I mean, this may sound very cliched, but when you do things that you like, you will continue to do it irrespective of the circumstances. The 4 founders came from capital market backgrounds, and the initial key employees like me, we have been thoroughly passionate about the markets. I mean, I actually used to got the share price lists from the newspaper cuttings from the age of 16. And I opened my CDS account before I got my driving license. And I used to use hand-drawn histograms on a exercise book to track share prices. And when you have that level of passions, even in an extremely stressful situation, you have that sense of calm because you are doing something that you want to do. And we ensure that even when we hire, that it's the passionate people that we hire. So I think those are the 2 key things I feel that which has made Linear grow.
Thank you so much. Zulfa, so after a very successful IPO, right, the current macroeconomic stability, how do you find your company looking to raise funds or, position yourself beyond your competitors by using this listed space? By using the listed space, this
digital space.
Yeah.
Sorry. So we are not raising money. We don't need the money. So I think for us, it's about the product experience. So we want to make sure that we keep solving for the problems that the people of our country have through digitally. And that's what we'll keep doing. So as you know, we have now 6 to 7 verticals now. So we will want to grow that and essentially look at other opportunities in that space.
All right, thank you. So the next question I would like to direct it to all of you all, because it is one of the very current, most ongoing concern that majority of the investors would have. And I would like research to just pull up the poll from the first. So while it's coming, I'll just say, so this is to do with how do you see Sri Lanka's macroeconomic transition from recession to sustainable growth, and the key catalysts that are required to elevate Sri Lankan equity market to its next phase. But given the global political instability and the US tariffs, with the recent revelation of US and Iran, the current market, what would your strategy be as an investor, given the situation which took place today?
To rephrase, you want to...
Also, sorry, I'll distribute that. So this is what the audience had to say regarding that question directed towards them. So 12 are staying in cash, 46 are holding positions, 8 are selling off and staying in cash, and 26 are investing further.
So if I'd probably be our broker for a while, would probably know what we will do. So first of all, to rephrase your question is, given the current global geopolitical environment and the Sri Lankan macroeconomy, what would you do? Right. Okay. I don't know to what extent the audience know that by poor execution, that Sri Lanka is among some of the is among countries with lowest exports to GDP in Asia. Now, that's not something to be proud of in normal circumstances. But the reality is, when Trump tariffs came, that meant that we were better positioned than Vietnam to be told that. Now, I'm not throwing it as to be something to be proud of. But the reality is, unless, when Iran scenarios, unless we lose about 30% of our exports to US, 40% of our exports to US, crude oil prices hit about $90, and we lose 50% of our remittances from across all the Middle Eastern countries, we are not likely to see a material impact in totality on our external environments. That is because Sri Lanka has one of the lowest exports to GDP. Our key exports to US have about close to 50% input component from imports. Now, I am not a geopolitical expert, but I do feel that none of the global superpowers can afford a protracted war. And the last 2 years actually confirmed that. So my belief is that unless you're fairly convinced feel that is not the case, that a seasoned investor should look to weather this volatility. And that is primarily because the Sri Lankan macroeconomic position is probably in its strongest footing it has been for the last 40 to 50 years. And I'm making that statement based on data. From 1970 to today, if you look at the interest rates, our Sri Lankan interest rates have not remained at these levels for more than 1 to 1.5 years. Now we are into our second year, and we think the rates will remain broadly at these levels. It can move up a bit, but broadly at these levels for at least for another 2 to 3 years. So that means our riskier assets, that means non-fixed income assets, have to re-rate. And this low interest rate is not based on frivolous macroeconomic policy. It's based on prudent macroeconomic policy which has been implemented by law. The Central Bank Act prevents money printing. It makes it illegal. You have a Public Debt Act which has put very specific restrictions on key fiscal metrics. That has never been the case for the last 40 to 50 years. So that means if you just slightly go above a ratio, it's illegal, and any act of the executive in violation of the law will not be effective. Number 3 is you have the Economic Transformation Act. So all those 3 put together makes us at Linear believe the Sri Lankan macroeconomic situation is fairly stable. That was put to test in December. And overnight, we had to spend about extra 500 billion rupees as part of the recovery from the cyclone. Even with that extra 500 billion rupees, the Sri Lankan government on a day-to-day basis will be cash positive. In spite of that spending, Sri Lankan government's cash balance will be positive, close to 1 trillion rupees or so. So in totality, my sense is that there can be incidents of volatility, but we are in a stable macro positions to weather it. And therefore, the risky assets, equities, real estate, private equity, etc., should continue to see re-rating over the next few years?
Thank you.
Thank you. So I wouldn't be able to advise on investment, but I can tell you we are a good investment company, because irrespective of what happens outside, people still have to move. They'll have to eat. So you will still see people using our app irrespective of what happens outside. Thank you.
I'm not an economist, but I was listening to Asanka. But when I look at any investment, I think you first look at, you said the world is facing some economic crisis, and as anyone knows, crisis always creates opportunity as well. And for me, I look at investments realistically, and also look at policy. I think that is the key for any investment. That's why investments and investment opportunities vary as per countries and as per governments. So that is where I focus more, and I try to be a little bit more pragmatic and realistic when I look at an opportunity. So if you look at the opportunity which was created when Trump took over and the tariffs came up, we all knew that we had to stay for a while and see what he does next. And as you saw, the policy kept changing. And when a situation such as that arises, it's very difficult to take a long-term view on any industry. But you see short-term gains. And that's where you pounce to look at short-term gains in situations like that. You look at the policymakers, and I think Sri Lanka had a reputation to do that in the past. And that's where we saw short-term opportunities. And when you look at Sri Lankan policies, see, there are so many reforms they have to do, but it's taken such a long time. One is labor, electricity, so many areas which they need to really start looking at if we are to get growth. Though all these macroeconomic situations are good, but if you are to get beyond 7-8% growth, there are so many other things which the government needs to act upon very soon. And if they don't, I think they're going to lose the opportunity. Yes, it's well and good. The interest rates are at a low, but I think inflation is at almost 2%. The interest rates need to come down further. Just because the interest rates have been at an all-time low doesn't mean that we have to remain at that. If you look at the last 15-20 years, the banks are creaming it. The banks, everyone is happy putting their money into a bank stock and sitting back. And the banks are happy to put their money into government bonds and sit and wait, collecting their revenue. But that's not where you're going to create growth. So the growth will only come if you create new businesses, new opportunities, and look at where Sri Lanka can offer special services to the world. And I think there are so many which we haven't even touched upon. And one I can say is logistics, which has a huge amount of potential considering where we are located. Then you take the mineral industry. I see again a huge opportunity there. And you look at sport. These are three which I have been looking at, and then we thought if there's any opportunity, we will creep into those areas. And the banking sector anyway has been making enormous profits in the last so many years, but really not helping the economy to grow. Because at the end of the day, what matters is people, the people need to have excess funds to spend. If the money is not spent, the economy is not going to grow. So the whole idea is to make sure that these opportunities which are there, we need to try and see how we can create a way of trying to expand into the region. So that is why I looked at these areas, and digitization is another area. The government has been talking about it, I think, for the last so many years. But unless you do that, scaling is going to be a problem. And protecting certain industries by bringing in higher taxes, again, is not going to be of any significant benefit to the country. So I know you have to protect some of the manufacturers, but I think they have to be able to compete in the world stage. So I think to allow a level playing field is very, very important, because if you take the customs reforms has taken so long. We are an island. Everything has to come in and out of this country for us to grow. And if the customs cannot be reformed and put systems in place, I can't see this country growing that quickly. So these are the areas I feel we need to look at if we want to really take it to the next level. And I think this is the best opportunity. And also to try and look at even these banks to be able to not only earn income through interest, but look at other ventures. They have to look at private equity support, some of these young entrepreneurs, because for them to grow and get facilities from a bank has become extremely difficult. And that is the very reason even we looked at setting up a fund to try and help some of these youngsters to build their careers and build their dream. And I think that is where I see the country progressing.
Thank you. I think if you're in equities in general, you have to be an optimist. You have to have a long-term view that the future is brighter than the past. If you don't have that view, then you shouldn't be in equities in the first place. That's the first part of that equation. The second part is that the duration of it should not be cyclical. This is not the first war that's going to happen. We had Iran issues a couple of months ago. Ukraine, Russia, wars will continue, and there will be another set of breakout wars. Pakistan is getting their neighbors as well. And then I think it's just a repeating theme that the world is going to be. The question, though, is just because the world is more volatile, what else are you going to do, right? I think the Sri Lankan market, there's some really interesting stats. And I think last year, we had about 50,000 people in the equities market. Last year, it grew from 50 to 100,000. And I think we are currently onboarding about 5,000 new users every single month into the public markets. If you actually think about the kind of the market reflexivity that creates, there is a gushing of new capital into equities unlike ever before. We did a kind of a fun survey across some of our team members, and what we found out is about 60 to 70% of employees, median age 27, 28, are exposed to equities and maintain no fixed income, which is a very different view from the bulk of the population. For me to convince my mom and dad to get into equities was a very tough challenge. Very different conversations that are happening today. So if you look at like the daily turnovers in the market today, it's orders of magnitude different from a couple of years ago. And a couple of years from now, it'll be orders of magnitude more different. So you kind of have to understand what else is the available function for your capital. If you have excess cash to invest, you are in an island that has somewhat strong capital controls where you can't kind of move those funds outside, and the tax adjusted returns on fixed income is single digit. for better or for worse, even somewhat even counter argument to the fundamentals, the asset class will do a better job than the rest of it. But obviously, I'm also biased in this. I think anyone who is an entrepreneur or a founder is by nature optimistic, because if you are not optimistic, I don't think it's a rational thing to do. For me, I mean, I am in a slightly more dangerous position because I quite enjoy leverage. I think interest rates are at an all-time low. Inflation's at an all-time low. Sri Lankan rupee structurally is not designed to appreciate. Everything we import has inelastic demand. Like, we can't get away by not having crude. We need all of these things, and everything we export is not really material to the rest of the world, unfortunately. If the world did not have Ceylon tea a year from now, the world will move just fine. If Sri Lanka can't import petroleum, I mean, we've seen how that goes, right? So you're kind of in a structured environment where you have access to a currency that is losing its purchasing power by about 5-6%. Interest rates are 7%, and you need to figure out an instrument to essentially hedge the erosion of your purchasing power over a period of time. So I think when you stack those things on top of each other, the likelihood of a long-term outlook where equities don't do phenomenally well is virtually zero. Short-term volatility, obviously it will be there. But I think now is not even the time that you should buy, but now is arguably the time where your equity exposure should be north of 100% and not be bearish. And if it's not something that you've looked at, I suppose the volatility that we will see over the next couple of weeks and months will probably present a very interesting opportunity for a lot of people. So personally, that would be kind of my take on kind of the changing geopolitical events, the right-hand corner of that graph. But I think we've made a lot of progress over the last couple of years, and given that context, it's really challenging for us, unless we actively try to self-sabotage. The likelihood of us kind of degrading further than where we were is fairly low on a rupee to rupee basis. Thank you, Bhanuka. I am not a registered investment advisor, just FYI.
My view is, the instability has started at the moment. All of a sudden, from this morning, this was coming. It was not, didn't happen all of a sudden. Even if you take our market, I think for the last 1 or 2 months, we have been not moving much anywhere, right? The market has been within 1,000 points, up and down. It has been staying. And one of the reasons has been the Iran war. So when there's volatility, market doesn't move, and, people are very worried and they stay away. But now, since it has already started, hopefully, either sides, I'm sure both sides are going to claim victory, and at some point, it will come to a closure in weeks, so I don't know how long it's going to take. We pray that, it will finish soon. If that happens, that instability is taken off, the volatility will be taken off. So that means, the regions will be better, the markets will start doing well. And we have also a big opportunity, like with Iran, especially oil. Maybe that might get open to the world markets, so the prices can come down if the war finishes. And initially, yes, it will be a situation for the moment, for a few weeks. But once that finishes, the sanctions will be over for them. Development will start. So there can be a huge opportunity again starting. At the moment, what we can face is our Sri Lankan tea at the moment only about $5 million that goes to Iran. That's also because we're just paying them off some of the old loans. So maybe if it's going to get prolonged for 1 or 2 months, maybe that won't happen. And thereafter that, that market is also going to open in a big way. It's used to be one of the huge market. And maybe oil prices, maybe short-term oil prices can go up. We never know because with this problem. But looking at my experience investing in the markets, from Sri Lankan context, if you see, we had a 30-year war, right? Within that 30 years, also the economy was doing somewhat all right. One side of the part of the country war was going on, but economy is still moving. And so once that has completed, now look at the last 4 incidents that happened to our country within the last 5 years. These are historical. We have never seen this kind of things before. All right. That's one is we started with the COVID. That's a pandemic that all over the world had, and Sri Lanka also faced, and the whole country was closed. Then the second came with the Aragalaya, and that's the first, with the leadership had to be thrown out. That was the second biggest thing we have seen in our history. And the third thing was the economic crisis. The country was faced with the dollar shortages to economic crisis that went through. So that was another biggest challenge that we got through that also. And the last one was the cyclone Ditwa. So these 4 major, I don't think so we have, other than the war, in our history, 50, 60 years, you would have seen anything which we have seen in short. And we have been quite resilient to come out of all these things. And if you take the stock market, with all those 4 huge problems faced to our country, we are almost at the all-time high. We are just 250 points away what we reached in January. So we have come out in quite a big way. That's because we are going through IMF program, as I said earlier, and what has brought through IMF, I would say, is the discipline. The IMF brought in certain policies which we should have done on our own for a long time, but that didn't happen. The government, it was changing, and they had their own way of doing things. But IMF brought in that discipline, as Aravinda all were mentioning, and Asanka also saying, the monetary policies, how the inflation, no more printing money, economic bill is there. So all these are brought in, and now even the the state-owned enterprises, which used to lose about 700-800 billion rupees a year, now all that has become profitable, except the Sri Lankan Airlines, which is also, I think, very soon they are finalizing something, not a sale, but some kind of a arrangement is coming in that. So these are the positives the country has turned around, so as you said, the over 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion cash in the treasury now, surplus. The revenues are good. So every angle, I can't see even one negative in the economy at the moment before this problem coming in now. Most of the signals are all, we are exceeding whatever the limits were given. Even IMF used to give 3.1, 3.2 targets. For GDP, we are doing 5%. Almost 8 quarters we have done that. And and even from opposition to economists to the government, all are saying even 5 is not enough, we should go to 7, 8, 9, 10%. So if those kind of numbers are going to come in the future, right, you can see how much the markets also can do. So economy is going to do well, the country will do well. Of course, we'll have these global issues will always keep coming, but these are matters of a few weeks or months. Now we have seen so many issues have come in the world, right? But it passes away unless it doesn't turn into a World War III, right? Other than that, if it's anything short of that, it's a matter of weeks and months. And I think, so even Trump always, he wants even the markets to do well. One time, I think recently he said, when they reached 50,000, the Dow Jones, he said within 3 years, they'll go to 100,000, right? So before his term ends. So that means, he's not trying to go for prolonged wars with any countries, hopefully. So maybe others also. So I'm quite positive looking at those things. It has worked for me very well, being invested in the market, taking long-term views. So that's the way we should look at investments and not get worried about short-term for 1, 2, 3 weeks. Yes, we have to stomach that and wait for a while. If there is a situation, other than oil prices going up and Middle Eastern people who are working and sending money, that's going to get hugely affected, then it's really a major issue. But if that is not going to be an issue, it'll be another passing cloud for me.
All right, thank you so much. This question is to Zulfer. This is more from the business perspective, and it is one of the upvoted questions from the audience as well. Would you are you looking at having a payment platform integrated into PickMe And also, are you integrating AI into developing your business?
So we are essentially a payment platform in some way or another. But I think there's more that central bank will have to do to liberalize those regulations for us to get into that space. Because if I may talk about the fintech space, it's not very lucrative. Let's put it that way, right? It's not very lucrative. It is great for engagement, but it's not a place where you can make a lot of money. So we need a bit more bit more liberalization in that space. We are engaging with central bank to see how we can sort of engage with them and see how we can work with them. There's a banker right in front of me, so I don't want to upset him as well. But obviously there's the commercial banks that have a lot of say in this space, right? And I think for a fintech to come in, it can be very, very tough. That's on one side, but I think we do a lot of payments on the platform today. Without doubt, one of the largest in the country today now. On the AI side of things, we do a lot of work. I think our future depends on that now. So we've made a lot of investment since last year to get most of our use cases driven through AI operationally as well as customer facing. There's a lot of productivity tools that have already come in. But at the same time, we are also now training models on LLMs also. I mean, we've been doing AI for some time now, but on this new sphere of LLMs, we have been doing some training, and hopefully we will bring them into production so that the customers and our stakeholders can start experiencing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Bhanuka, this question is for you and it is coming from the audience as well. As a entrepreneur who's from a tech firm, you all know how the whole market is dependent on one service provider for a trading platform. The question for you is are you looking at developing something which could benefit the local markets?
I would love to talk about this in great detail, but the amount of NDAs I've signed in this space is quite material, which I think will answer the question. I think it made no sense historically to enter the space. The fee structure between the broker relationships to the platforms didn't make sense. I think the financial incentives weren't aligned, and I don't think we had enough volume. I think 5 years from today, the country will be in a very different place. And I think the incumbents aren't making the necessary investments required purely because the economics of today does not make sense. But I think the economics of tomorrow in this space will be incredibly interesting. As I think we model some data, and what we were looking at it is about a population of Sri Lanka should at least have 5 to 10 times the total number of active equity holders. You may have to correct me if I'm wrong. I think in the US, the total amount of wealth stored in equities of the average household is about 60% of their wealth. In Sri Lanka, it's very, very low single digit. So there's a massive expansion of equities in terms of a household wealth that needs to grow. So I think when that happens, and I'm pretty confident it will over the coming decade, there'll be at least 10 times the volume of individuals trading 10 times the throughput per individual. So effectively, you have 2 orders of magnitude, right? And I think when it goes to 2 orders of magnitude, the economics are incredibly lucrative. So we are looking at that space. I think it's a really interesting space, and I think we are working with the right partners.
All right, thank you so much. Asanka, the next question is to you. So this is to do more on how the investors are thinking about the market when it comes in terms of valuations, more or less PEs. Majority of the market has not experienced, the younger generation especially, a market being over 12 PE. But historically, if we see every time the market has broken the all-time highs, the PEs have been over 15, maybe at 1.20, over 20 as well. What should these investors, or how should they rewire their mindset to think that 12 PE is not expensive? Or do you think it is expensive?
Can I ask whether you are referring to 12 Ps in terms of forward or trading? Trailing. Right. Okay. I really think if I can answer that question, I think if I get the intention of the question, but I might not directly answer it, but I would actually answer the intention of the question. I never look at on trading. I always look at on forward. And I think the rewiring the Sri Lankan investors need to do should be based on that. Right. As an example, in 2011 and 12, the PE touched about, I think, 15 or even 20 times. And that was on trading. And at that point, the central bank was printing money, keeping the rates low, and rates was about to go up. So essentially what it means in your corporate profitability is likely to get hit. So at that point in time, looking at trading didn't make any sense. Now if I look at it, my suggestion to investors, not advice, because I think there are people who knows this better than me, is look at the structure of the Sri Lankan economy as it recovers. There'll be different sectors at each phase which will start seeing sharper earnings growth. And that sharper earnings growth means the sector multiples are like to be, forward multiples are like to be lower than the other sectors. As an example, coming out from the 2022 crisis, the first sector which is likely to report growth was what you call the defensive consumer sector. The companies which sells the most essential things. That sector forward P was quite low in 2020-2023. Now, as of today, I feel the discretionary consumer categories forward earnings Ps are looking fairly low. And when I say discretionary consumer, I'm not referring to just food, discretionary consumer financing. And I would put construction material is also to a discretionary consumer category. So this broader category of discretionary spending, sectors exposed to discretionary spending is looking relatively cheaper than others. So I would focus on forward earnings.
Thank you so much. Mr. Imtiaz, the next question is to you. The most popular question, I think. Where do you see the index at the end of December 2026 and why?
So with the current situation today, we'll have to watch a little. So next 2-3 weeks is very crucial. But if you just take that out for the moment, as Asanka was saying, we have to look at the forward Ps. So if you look at before the crisis, say we had multiple crises within the last 5 years. So that means we should have been done well before that. If you see the listed companies, the earnings was only about 200 to 225 million average we were doing for a year. So currently the earnings have gone up to about 750 billion, right? From 225 within the last load, we have grown up and come about 730, 740 kind of a billion we have come. So that means the companies are started to earn. So they are, doing something good. Even the last quarter, which just finished yesterday, if you look at the numbers, we have grown about 2-3% quarter on quarter. But if you see the year on year, it's about 20% less. But if you relatively look at the numbers of last December and this December, and there were one group had about extraordinary profits they showed for about 30-35 billion. And also the banks had ISB reversals. So that was about another 40 plus billion. So if you take that out, about 80 billion out, technically if you look at it, the earnings have grown another 20% year on year. If you just take the one-off things out, if you see the reversals, And if you look at the some of the banks which didn't have reversals last year, they have done better, where their earnings has shown a growth. But those had ISB reversals are showing a lesser figure this time. So what I'm trying to say is like the earnings, anyhow, the listed companies they are getting better and better, right? So they have a way of making money. There are a lot of one-off profits were there during this last 5 years. If we take each and every industry, I think they had a good year. Like in some, like, there were import restrictions were there. So those companies were doing well. The dollar crisis were there at that time. All the dollar companies were doing well. Like, so every like if you see the PD companies did well when the treasury bills were high, right? Even now the stock market is doing well. The investment companies are doing well. Like if you go through each and every, now even the properties, there's revaluations happening, right? Today you can't construct, the prices have so much, it has gone up from almost, now they are selling about 50 to 150,000 per square foot. That's the kind of range that the new prices are coming up. So if you do a real revaluation, I'm sure by the March quarter comes, most of the listed companies also will do a lot of revaluation on their assets. Even those will have some of one-off gains also coming in. So looking at these numbers and looking at 15-20% growth going forward, I'm sure we can hit 30,000 within another year, say first quarter of next year. 30,000 should be a problem because it's only about 25% from the 24,000, so another 6,000 to go. But again, with these problems should solve quickly, and we always seen as soon as once the problems are solved, it always takes off very fast, and it goes beyond where it was. It goes to another level because the uncertainties taken off after that. So this is one of the last areas that I'm seeing that the globally also that big war, like the Iran thing has been there for a while. If that uncertainty is also cleared, I think the markets can do well. And at this moment, currently, so many markets are at all-time high. Japan is at all-time high. Korea market is at all-time high. Taiwan is doing well. They're also at all-time high. Australian market, and when France, looking at these problems, knowing that's going to come also, all these countries are doing well. Even the US market, just about 2 weeks back, they were at all-time highs. So markets will bounce back. I'm quite hopeful, say by March next year, 30,000 should be a difficult thing to.
Thank you so much. Research, we would like to see what the audience had to say about the index. Thank you. Asanka, I'm just going to throw this to you very quickly. I don't want you to take your time and put you in the spot also. Do you think where everyone's thinking between 24,000 to 30,000, that's where you see the majority is currently at? Are you in par with them, or are you looking at the market differently?
I think in a 12 months time, probably might be somewhat about 27,000 is what I feel. I'm not saying 30,000, but I think it will probably be above 27,000 is my sense. I think just to add one more point which I missed out on the first round, if an investor is looking at the real earnings, the business volumes across many sectors, none of them have actually recovered to the levels of 2015 and 16. I think there are quite a few entrepreneurs in this audience, and they are likely to agree with me. So essentially, this economy in real terms haven't really recovered. And that is where the opportunity for earnings growth lies. And if that were to happen, I'm not sure whether it hit 30,000. It could, but I do see that the earnings itself can drive the index up, is my view.
Thank you. Question from the audience to Mr. Aravinda. Have you been such a successful entrepreneur, rather than investing in your own company, what made you acquire a company? What made you acquire a company listed rather than listing?
Well, that's a good question. In fact, my intention is to list it at some point. But as I mentioned earlier, I need to create some scale before I do that. And that's what I'm looking for. And as soon as I achieve that, I'm also not young anymore. So I think I need to get some young people involved, because I want to hand over the entity to someone, a young, dynamic sort of board who can take the businesses forward. And then even on the matter you were talking about, it's always a case of some of these equities and the companies, as I mentioned earlier, it's being repriced regularly because the interest rates are low. So if you look at some of these companies which are leveraged high, they're going to benefit, and with that, their profitability is going to grow. So therefore, the profitability in the next 2 years again will be quite substantial. And if you look at the banks, for example, their bonds which were issued during the crisis run till 2028. So they're still sitting on 27-28% bonds, which are going to give them a fairly decent yield. So the banks will continue to perform well in the next couple of years. So you see a surge in the profits in the banking sector due to that. So that there are certain segments, as I said, it depends on policy really, where some of these sectors will benefit, and that's where you need to focus on. And those are the industries and the listed companies which will benefit, because there will be a trickling down effect to some of these entities because of certain policies which are in place. So I feel that is where it matters. And with regards to increasing the accounts, the SEC and CSC has to really go out there and do a lot of marketing, support the market and the investors in that aspect, I feel. Mainly because, see, at the end of the day, you need to create disposable income for them to invest. So if the country overall and the public doesn't have enough disposable income, they will not be able to allocate anything to the public markets. So I think that is where we need to focus on. That's why I said the interest rates coming down further is a thing which will help the economy grow, and even it will help the markets, because no one will want to stay in a fixed deposit when the interest rates are low and you're paying 36% tax. So it is an opportunity for them to look at investing elsewhere. So those are certain things which will have an impact overall in developing this market as well. And if you want to increase the number of investors, because otherwise, see, there are about 400,000 accounts which keep going round and round, and it's the same money which is going around. So there's no new money coming into the market unless we create that disposable income. So that is why it's important for the policymakers also to look at those areas. And even as bankers, it's very important to look at how these businesses also will make extra money to get into those areas. Because when you pay, everyone says it's at an all-time low, but if you look at other countries, Swiss francs, and in Singapore, people borrow below 1%. Yen, you borrow below 1%. Australia is probably one of the highest at 5-6%. But if you take rest of the countries are all below 5%. And even India brought their rates down, and that's where the economy kickstarts. So I think that is where we need to really, really focus on if we are to get more growth opportunity even into the public markets.
Thank you so much. Bhanuka, having understanding the flavor of the Colombo Stock Exchange, would you ever consider listing one of your companies?
So, yes. Part of the reason that we went through a series of restructure the last few years is for us to also be able to do that. I mean, it's an ongoing discussion. There's probably a few things we want to do before we get there, but give it a couple of years. I think it's something that it's a conversation we're actively having.
That's great. Thank you so much. If we have any questions from the audience to the panelists. In that note, I would like to say thank you so much to all the panelists who are here today with me and answering all the questions. I think that's about it. We are perfectly on time. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, so I'd like to invite Mr. Rizli to hand over the first token to Asanka, Herath, over there. Jiffry Zulfer to accept this kind gesture. Aravinda De Silva. Bhanuka Harischandra. And of course, Imtiaz Buhardeen. And why not include the moderator? He's been doing a good job, yes? So the next gesture is for Ifsad Marika. I'd like to thank everyone on stage. Thank you so very much. I'm sure the audience will agree with me that this forum has been quite different to the usual. We usually have many experts, but today we had a set of investors speaks from their heart on stage. So I'd like to thank all of them for their valuable insights shared with us here this evening.
Sri Lanka defaults on $51 billion external debt.
Compared to last year, it's just a 1% yearly increase. In terms of arrivals, we've seen 15% increase.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you saw was a journey, and now I'd like to introduce you to a young man, Shangri-La Buhardeen. Shamir is the managing director of Almas Equities, where he heads one of Sri Lanka's most progressive and forward-thinking financial services firms. With over 12 years of entrepreneurial and business leadership experience across multiple sectors, Shamir brings a rare blend of operational depth, strategic thinking, and market insights to the capital market space. Shamir's work is driven by a long-term vision to modernize financial services, access, elevate investor education, and build trust-driven capital market participation in Sri Lanka. He has a philosophy too, and that is, markets grow when trust, transparency, and intelligence come together. Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Shangri-La Buhardeen.
Hi, very good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. It's been a Saturday. It's been a insightful panel discussion. Firstly, thank you very much for the panelists for taking your time and giving your insights. So I think my time here, just a quick one. We're going to break our fast at about 6:20, 6:25. is to kind of talk about what's next, right? We've seen what we've done in this little 4 years that we've come on board. Almas Holdings as a group has been in operation for more than 25 years, but we've been very private, a family-run organization. But over the last 4 years, I think we've taken the journey into really structure, corporatizing the whole company, the organization, the team, and all of that. So 4 years ago, I think was a really tough time. All of us here went through that when we were, in fuel queues and things like that. Things were not good. But I think with the vision of the group, we decided to take that opportunity. There was an opportunity to take over a stock brokering firm, get into the regulated space. And that's what we did. And it wasn't easy because though we became one of the founder members of the CAC, the fifth, in fact, a 40-year-old license, we actually started, like you saw in some of the videos, we started with 0 staff, 0 systems, 0 people, no accounts, nothing. And it was a scary time, but I think we pulled through. And the staff have grown to, I think we're at about a 50 staff count now, just with the brokering arm alone, and things are growing. So I'd like to take a little bit of time to just kind of talk about where we're going. Right, so what's next? So Almas One. So I think Almas One has been a real anchor for all of us. I think we've tried to bring this differentiation to the market because we didn't want to be any other broker. We wanted to kind of democratize information, and this is public information that we wanted to give to everyone to access in a much easier way. So we have a Almas One Experience Center when you're networking after dinner to kind of experience if you haven't already. So what I'll do here is I'll just spend a quick 5 minutes to kind of give you a quick live run through of a few things that we've been doing. So I see a lot of familiar faces here, people who were with us at the Golf Face Hotel only 2 years ago when we launched Almas One. Since then, we've grown to over 10,000 users. And I was actually surprised to know that it's been accessed in more than 100 countries. So, I mean, we're doing something right. So for those who don't know, I'll just do a quick one here. I think we have a company dashboard. Let me show you here. For more than for the 280 listed companies, for every single company that is listed in the stock exchange, we have an individual dashboard that talks about what that company does, their earnings. I'll just stick with John Keel's because, I mean, I can't show any favoritism. So we'll just pick the biggest company by market cap. So, we have basic stuff like, their live pricing, their change from a 7-day, 30-day price change, 6 months. We have all the, valuation data. If you want their live PE ratios, those are here, and the price to book values. So these are things that I think as learned investors, I think today the investor is slightly different. They don't call up the broker and they just kind of believe what they say. They want to be able to kind of, track what to do as well. So I think we've given them that access to be able to have all of this information and kind of take those decisions as well. So every single company that lists, our research team tirelessly takes all of that information. We try to automate as much as possible, but we put them in this. I'm not going to spend too much of time here. I think there's too much to go through, but I'll just scroll quickly here. I think we even show, okay, so this is something that I think only we show. If you remember, I think most brokers share a net foreign transaction on a daily basis, right? So it shows the top 10 net foreign inflows and the top 10 net foreign outflows for the day. Whereas what we have here is individually, I can see for John Keel's, down being net foreign outflow and up being net foreign inflow, how it has been for the last 30 days. So that's something that you can see for every single company listed in the Colombo Stock Exchange. And I don't think anyone else does that. This is something new that we just went live with today. You will be able to see basically the turnovers and share volumes on an average basis for these companies on a 7-day, 30-day, a 6-month and a 1-year average. So if you want to compare how today's turnovers have been compared to the averages, those are things that can be seen. I'm going to skip a few things because I think we're a little bit short on time. Crossings is something that we have. For every single crossing that is done on every single company, you can come in here and have a look. And I think, again, this is something that, we wanted to give. By the way, if you didn't know, if I didn't mention it already, Almas One is completely free. You don't even have to have a trading account with us. You just need a mobile number and an email address, and then you can access this. Obviously, we are going to restrict some access in time to come for our premier customers. We'll keep most of it free, but we're working on a few interesting things. We have some shareholder movements on quarter to quarter that we've been working on. We'll be giving that to our premier customers and a few things like that. So just before I move on, I just like to show you our new daily market summary page. This gives you a summary of the daily market on a daily basis. What we've done here is actually we've made it, if you are familiar with Almas One, we used to have a scroll that goes down all the way. Whereas now you can switch to different things that you want to see. So if you'd like to see foreign activity in the market, you come in over here, and as usual, what you can see on the CAC website, you can see the net foreign buys, the net foreign sells, and we also have a live ticker here, year to date, and net foreign kind of participation in the market. So that stands at 6.3% for the current year. I mean, again, this is too much of information for me to go through on a presentation on a Saturday evening, but I just wanted to give a flavor for those of you who have not kind of been exposed to it. And for those who have, I'd like to show you a few, one or two things that really interest me. We brought in these new things called contributors to ASPI. If you're familiar with the CSC website, if you log in, you would see this, right? So we thought, okay, how can we make this different? So this shows you the top 10 positive contributors to the ASPI and the top 10 negative contributors to the ASPI on the last trading day. But then we said, no, we have this information. Why not we make it a bit better? So what we actually did was, now you can see here, you can go here and kind of, let me just try this. Yep. So what do you call this? Filter this or sort this. So year to date, basically, a commercial bank has contributed 130 plus points to the ASPI, and we've gone and done that for every single counter. You can see that on a year-to-date basis, a month-to-date basis, for the day as well. So this is just something just to kind of see which companies have contributed the most to the ASPI, and that's something that is there. And you can go for the whole list and have a look as well. The stock screener, I don't think I have too much time, but I'll just kind of show you. We've cleaned it up completely, and it's just basically a much cleaner view now. And then you're able to sort right on the sheet, whereas the old one, I still have it here actually, looked a little bit different. So this is how it used to be, a little bit more complicated. So I think we've just taken a little bit of time to kind of smooth that out. So with that, I'll just kind of stop there and I'll take you through what I have. The app, right? So it's been 2 years since Almas One has been running as a web portal, a web platform. It's all right on the mobile. So we've actually embarked on a journey now to actually get the Almas app one done, the Almas One app done, and hopefully in the next couple of months you'll see some news on that. And just to kind of give you a sneak peek, I don't want to give too much away. Apart from what you have on Almas One already, what it's going to do is basically have all your portfolio information that you already have in your A-Trade app on the Almas One app as well. So it's going to be linked, and you will get personalized alerts depending on your portfolio and what you want to follow. So you'll have all the metrics that you need for your trading, as well as, let's say, you want to be alerted of a 10% up or a 5% down on the price of your portfolio or a portfolio that you're watching or a watch list. You will get alerted individually. So that's one thing that we're trying to do. And there's a few things. So I'll leave that. So that's Almas One, the app. What else? So we have in the brokering operation, the Murabaha buying power product. So this is going to interest a few of our Sharia-minded clients. I think we are the first brokering house in Sri Lanka to launch Islamic buying power product, a Sharia-based, approved by our internal Sharia board. So I'd also like to mention that we have a 3-member Sharia board approved for the group, actually, to kind of go through all of these sensitive matters that are there, to discuss them, kind of be open-minded about them, and see how we can take responsible decisions based on it. So the Murabaha buying power product, we've completely worked on it in-house with the help from a few partners. It's taken almost a year for us to get this done. We've done some testing with a few customers. I know a few of you are here, but we plan to kind of release this to the retail market very, very soon. So basically what it means is we're going to have approximately a 14-day and a 21-day margin product that is Islamically backed through Murabaha. And you basically have fixed timelines and profit rates that are kind of granted. So I'll leave that. We'll have a separate session for that. Almas Wealth. So Almas Wealth is something that we're really, really excited to kind of talk about. I think it's something that we're really interested. I think it's cementing our journey in this regulated space. So the brokering operation has been running for about 4 years. We've learned a lot, tried to kind of challenge the market, do things differently. So Almas Wealth, the company is formed. We're working with the CAC and the SEC on the licenses. So I'd like to kind of announce it right here that hopefully very, very soon, we will have the unit trust side of things. Again, we will try and focus on the Sharia side because I think that is something that is lacking in the market. And also private wealth management. So I think not, having your own portfolio and kind of overlooking it on a daily basis is not for everyone. So I think private wealth management is something that we will be moving into very, very soon. So Almas Wealth is something that is coming as well. Right, what do I have next? Right, so I mean, the vision for the group, for our client-facing side of the business, we have the brokering operations. We will have Almas Wealth very soon. We want to be a fully fledged investment bank with the full flurry of services from the M&A, the corporate advisory, IPO managing services. And our plan is in the next 3 years to be that fully fledged bank, hopefully. So I think, we won't get there without you, and we haven't got here without you as well. So firstly, I would like to kind of thank you all for, helping us on this journey, because without you, the customer, the client, that trust that you placed on us, I don't think we would have come this far. Right. Just to end, Almas Holdings. So I think everything I have spoken about culminates, let me just get the slide proper. Everything culminates in this. So Almas Holdings is our holding company of the group. And it holds all of these subsidiaries that I just spoke about. Almas Equity is a stock brokering, Almas Wealth, and hopefully in the future, Almas Investment Bank. So, I mean, Almas Holdings is a very, strategic play in the market. We are very passive in that sense, where we've, taken strategic holdings in many listed companies, and kind of go for the long term, believe in businesses, believe in business models, and kind of, take that journey with them. And that has done us very well. And I don't think it would be, my right to talk about this journey. I'm involved in a lot of the operations, and I have a great team with Ifad, running the brokering operations, and everyone at Almas Equities. But the holdings operation for our group, it'll only be right if I invite the group chairman, also known as my father, Mr. Imtiaz Buhardeen, to give us a few words on kind of where Almas Holdings is heading and what it has done in these couple of years. And with that, I think we will break and have our seats after that to have our iftar together. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I think we should appreciate Shamir and the Almas Equities team for putting together a wonderful job today, and all this app and all those things that they have been creating. I think we should give a good applause to them. So I'm not here to make a long speech. We have almost time up to make for iftar time. Just one thing that I want to say is that we have come a long way within our 25 years journey. It's not easy. Of course, the last 5 years, we have been fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, I would say. Our investments have paid off very well. And so I think it's time that we have been slowly building and coming to a place where that we should share our journey with everyone and open up for and go for an IPO, inshallah. So I think within the next 2 to 3 So inshallah, within 2 to 3 quarters, we should be able to get there. We have had a wonderful period within the last 4 financial years. I would say like whatever we have made in the last 4 years, we were able to equal or more within the last 11 months in the for this year. So that's a wonderful achievement that we have done in our portfolios, because we have taken long-term views. Some of our portfolios are like 7, 8, 9, 10 years we have been holding, and that has paid off well. And so that's the model that we have been want to take it forward. I've been a great follower of Warren Buffett and his company Berkshire Hathaway. So something similar that we want to bring and cultivate to bring to the market. So hopefully that's our plan. Inshallah, if like the short-term problems don't drag too long, we should be in a position to come out hopefully in about 2 to 3 quarters from now. Just to give a preview of like what we have done in terms, I don't want to mention numbers straight away. I will just say something like if you are listed today in the stock market, we can be placed in the top 30 listed companies. Our net profits will be. So that's a big achievement, I think. And if you also take the highest market cap, I think we have almost close to the blue chip companies results that we have made already. So that's our plan. So just I want to give that good news that hopefully we are ready to go for IPO, and we have been working, and a few more areas that we have to get right. We need few more good independent directors to come in, and we have a great team at the moment. It's a young team, and that we feel because the market, why we want to go for an IPO, is like there's a lot of opportunities are going to come through SOE privatizations, a lot of the growth area that we are looking. We have been in the stabilized period for last 2-3 years now. Now we are looking at the growth phase to come for the country. So there's much more can be done, and if we have a much bigger capital base and this thing, we should be able to even do much better. So in short, that's the news that I want to present to you all. Thank you very much for everyone coming, and enjoy the rest of the evening, breaking iftar, and also stay for dinner. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the event still continues. Obviously, we are here for more than what we've seen so far. I would like to invite you to now please make your way. It's free seating to the banquet tables, after which we will continue to speak to you. So thank you very much for sitting here. I'd like to invite you to iftar, so please join us at the banquet tables at the back.